On today's episode, we have a new co-host. Pirates beat reporter for the Post-Gazette, Noah Hiles, joins us as we discuss Ben Cherington's press conference, Derek Shelton going into year 6, and the MLB playoffs. You're listening to the Bucco Bantr podcast, brought to you by the Just Baseball Media Network. Scott, cue the music.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates. Order steak by the plates, and in case after case, run my race at my pace, clear the grass of the snake.
Adam, Noah, welcome to another episode of Bucco Bantr. Noah, this is your first appearance on Bucco Bantr in the offseason. Welcome back. I've stopped counting how many times you've come on. You're just one of us now.
Four.
Okay.
One for every LeBron ring. 4.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be back. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Good to have you on, Noah. We had a kind of like a pod with you last week. If you haven't checked it out, The Point, Noah is the first champion of The Point. So congratulations. That was a blast. It was on NS9. How are you feeling after that championship? I mean, did you go out and celebrate?
No. You know what my favorite championship is, Adam? The next one. That's what it is. Yeah. So
Right.
I'm already geared up. No, but dude, that was fun. I enjoyed that. I think that can be a really cool show. We have a group chat. We were already making our dream matchups like after that. And like, yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of fun to come from that show.
I enjoyed doing it with, obviously, us three were on it, and then Doug. Doug is hilarious, man.
Yes.
That took me by surprise, his comments. I'm not going to state them on this show. If you want to go and listen to The Point, go ahead. Just cracked me up. But unfortunately, there's not many positives right now to talk about the Pirates.
No.
I know that's something I probably say more often than not, but we're only a couple weeks removed from the season, and we already have drama. And I know this has been kind of just beaten into the ground over the past week, but you were in the room when it happened. So maybe a little bit of a different perspective coming from you on the Ben Cherington press conference that has everybody up in arms, and we can dissect it and break down the comments. But no, wanted to just hear from you. What was the overall vibe in this room, maybe going into it, coming out of it, any conversations that you had, anything that you didn't expect, took you by surprise? Let us know your feelings.
Yeah. If I were to summarize it, melt it all down and make one big point, it would be just kind of like nothing came from it. And I think that's the frustration from every Pirates fan who reacted to, the tweets from it, the stories came from it, obviously just the plain quotes. People expected a little bit more. Right? Just this whole season. And then to get the same quotes you got from the guy leading up to the deadline, after the deadline, every week on his radio show, it was 45 minutes of just recycled rhetoric. There wasn't much new. I mean, to me, the biggest thing that stood out was the first 2 questions. I have them here. And I'll just summarize them basically. He talked about how they learned a lot this year, and one of the things he believed they learned is that while they've improved, they need to see guys improve more at the major league level, and he decided that some changes were necessary to make things go faster. And this is what my big takeaway from the quote was, to some extent, what I believe we need to do is develop just more cohesion, tighter alignment, tighter connection inside our major league group. So that work that goes toward getting players better faster is happening better and faster all the time. It's not that we can't do it. We have examples of what we're doing right, blah, blah, blah. But it's just, he basically admitted, it's like, we're not on the same page here. And that's kind of jarring when you consider it's like, how not? Most of the staff has been here the whole time. And I get that Haynes wasn't. Haynes wasn't hired at the same time as Shelton and Cherington, but it's most of these guys have been professionals for the bulk of their time. You want to talk about Sawinski came here in 22? He was here the whole time of Haynes' tenure. Henry Davis, all but half of his first, they drafted him in 21. Pretty much all of his professional career was under Haynes' tenure, like all of this stuff. And it's like, why are these guys failing? How is there a lack of communication when this was the group that was in charge? Where is the disconnect? And to me, I think, just based on conversations I've had and seeing him kind of say that, I think there was just a lack of trust. I don't know if maybe it was players not buying into the message, or if, there were players I know from just reporting on the team that each guy, it's like a collective effort when it comes to telling someone what they need to work on. Like when they send down Sawinski, there are meetings, and it's Haynes talking, it's Shelton talking, it's the research and development people talking, it's their minor league group talking, and they're all trying to come together to figure out a plan to get Jack Sawinski on the right path, or Henry Davis on the right path, or Dion Bay on the right path, or whoever. And it sounds like more often than not, they couldn't figure out the right path.
Well, you mentioned the word cohesion. There's a couple quotes from this press conference that I saw that kind of stuck out to me, but I guess I'll pose this question to both of you. Like, when you hear the general manager of your organization say there needs to be more cohesion, it sounds like there's a lack of culture. And you would think what follows that in year 5, 6 for most of these guys coming up is a change. Would you not?
I think that, yeah. And I mean, that's kind of what led to that quote, was they were asking about the change. And like, even in that quote, like I said, he said, ultimately I decided in order to do it better, some changes were necessary. It's not the change that everyone kind of wanted, or change is. It's moves that I think were absolutely necessary, but was it enough? We'll find out. And even just with the front office stuff too, like the fact that they went out and filled their international scouting director spot with a guy who was a part of this organization up to last year. He left for a year, he came back, and they're like, yep, this is the fix. The guy who was pretty much here the whole time anyway. Like it's that kind of stuff where you're identifying a problem, but also like kind of admitting that you're not solving it.
Yeah.
Like you're saying that we still believe in this whole group, when I think it's fair to ask, like, why should you believe in this group?
Yeah, it's definitely, it seems to be a Pittsburgh theme all around, just staying in-house with the coaching staff and trying to build from within to an extent, which is good if you have that culture, the winning culture, the trust and the respect that we're talking about, and you could hand the baton to the next guy and lead the way. But, you mentioned these meetings, and you need a guy at the end of the table, or if we're going to bring out Curb Your Enthusiasm, like a guy that can middle, a guy that's going to be able to control the room, that people are going to look to keep the conversation going, to push new ideas, to get other people thinking in a way that maybe hasn't been done before. And you look and you talk like, hey, maybe this is not a cohesive unit. Everything's not firing on all cylinders, however, whatever you want to call it. It's like, well, that starts at the top. And if we're not going to go past Shelton, then it's like, well, we already know GMBC's job is safe, because based on what he said on keeping Shelton's job and going to the front office and then the press conference, his job was never really in question to begin with. Correct. So really the biggest move to be made was going to be Shelton, if it was, and it wasn't. So like you said, the necessary moves with Haynes was made. Message, whatever, sure. But like, if you're going to do it right. Don't just do it half-ass, and you're just going to have the same type of bullshit that you're dealing with now going into next year, which kind of just brings me to my next kind of point. Maybe it's a segue. I could stick on the GMBC thing all day, but what's going to change? And like, Scott, what do you think is going to change with Shelton going into year 6? Because we've had a taste of everything for the past 5 years on how he likes to run a ball club, and maybe his faults and the pros that he brings to the field. But what needs to change, and what do you think is going to change?
I mean, what needs to change is building a culture, in my opinion. I think he's had 5 years to do that. And I've stated this many times. I'm like, I like Shelton. I just don't know if he's the right man for this job. I don't necessarily know who is. Like, we don't know. I know a lot of people are upset about Terry Francona going to Cincinnati. Is he the right man? Would he have been the right man for this job? We don't know that. But building a culture, I think, is going to be the most important thing. And I think it starts with who you fill this roster with. Did they have a guy in that locker room this year that was going to be your clubhouse guy that guys could rally around, that has been there and has done that? Like, this is why I've been saying, and I will continue to say, this is the most important offseason for the Pirates in my lifetime, I think.
Yeah. Noah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference is like, and if we don't see it, then it's truly appalling. They've got to feel some pressure now. Whereas, like, I really don't think they felt the pressure this year until August, right? Like, I feel like there's just kind of like we're still developing, we're still learning. And then the expectations got real when they got hot in July and bought at the deadline. And then when you saw it kind of crumble, that's when you saw Shelton, turn things up a notch. You saw him get a little antsy, with getting ejected, getting upset in press conferences, not just obviously the one with me, but like with other ones too. Like, he was wearing the losses. He was wearing it a little bit more than he typically does. I think he's pretty much going to go into this year with that amount of pressure on his back. He might not show it early on, but I think that Ben and Shelty both have to kind of feel like, look, this is year 6. Like, and they've been very vocal. I feel like it gets lost on some people that, like, Cherington said from the early part of his tenure, he doesn't really consider 2020 his first year because it was the pandemic and it was a short season and everyone did business differently. So to them, this is year 5. Now, granted, for most teams, by year 5 is supposed to be like you're contending for a championship. And year 4 is like you're in the playoffs. Year 3 is like you're starting to see progress. Even if this is year 5 to their standard, or in their view, the progress meter is still kind of like on year 3 where it's supposed to be. So I do think that both of these guys are going to have a little bit of pressure. And I said this on our post-season podcast with Andrew at Yankee Stadium. I said, like, there just needs to be more aggression all around. They need to be aggressive. They need to manage the game more aggressively. They need to be more aggressive in the offseason. They need to take chances. They need to, if you only have a couple of bucks to spend it big on one guy and bank on that guy being a difference maker. They need to be more aggressive with how they use their weapons and calling guys up. They were aggressive last year by getting Jared up here early and Paul. Like, they need to continue doing that. They just need to be more aggressive. They need to be aggressive with how they fill these openings. And hopefully, for the sake of Pirates fans, that because these guys, I mean, their seats have to be a little warm. They have to recognize that, we're the next ones to go if this doesn't work out, that they cannot afford another losing season. And because of that, maybe they do get aggressive and they say it is the time. And I genuinely would hope to see, a change in that mentality, a change from, just the understanding Derek Shelton, the patient Derek Shelton. Fans shouldn't want to see a patient Derek Shelton anymore. No. Like, the bar should be a little higher. This is a team that, I mean, they're not really adding any huge rookies of consequence. Like, Chandler and Harrington can be good, but even without that, like, Chandler won't be on the opening day roster, I don't think. So, like, this opening day roster, it's not going to have any rookies of consequence. It's not going to have some young pieces. I mean, Endy or whatever, but, like, most of your team has now played meaningful baseball. They crumbled while they played meaningful baseball, but most of your team has now had a taste of this. So you should not be talking about these guys like they're still learning now. They're big leaguers, and you need to treat the job differently. And I think maybe that's where you see a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah. Pressure is constant, right? You're either feeling it or you're applying it, and they're definitely feeling it now, but they have not applied it whatsoever. So I agree with you, Scott. This offseason is going to be so important. The class to pull from, not the best. outside of maybe the top 5 guys that are going to get $300 million plus well, I mean, Soto's going to get like 6, 7, but like, Bregman, Bellinger, if he opts out, Alonso, and a handful of others, there's really not much to pick from. So you kind of have you have to hit. Like you can't, I mean, yes, I'd like to see them be aggressive and it doesn't work out. It's like, well, they're trying. At least it adds another element to it, but there's very little room for error in a class that doesn't really provide much at all.
Yeah, this is where I like the word that Noah used, aggressive, because I feel like you said, the class is thin this offseason. This is where Ben needs to be aggressive in the trade market, needs to get creative, needs to think outside the box, because maybe the answer isn't on the free agent market. It's very possible that it's not. And then also going into next season, like they can't be using excuses like with Rowdy, like we're just going to wait this out and let him figure it out. They can't afford to do that. They can't afford to let Bednar not come into the season ready and just keep putting him in these high leverage situations. Like from that point on, it felt like they were stuck to this arbitrary window where like 2024 wasn't really the year for them. And they were just going to wait everything out and let guys figure things out. But as long as you have Paul Skeens on this roster, it has to be a contending year.
And it's not just Paul Skeens, it's Paul Skeens with no limitations anymore. Like this guy should be able to throw 200 innings based off of how he ended with 160 and a third. You ideally go up 20 to 40, depending.
Is 160 counting his minor league innings?
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
He threw 27 and a third in AAA and 130 in the 133 in the big leagues. So 160, they'll jump from 160 to, let's not even say 200. If he has the exact same season as Mitch Keller as far as usage goes, he'll be at like 195, right, with 31 starts or something like that. Like you're getting a full year of him. And sure, like you might have to monitor Jared a little bit because he's still finished in the 120s. And you're going to have to monitor Johan because he's coming off of Tommy John and all these other guys. But like down to brass tacks, the toughest thing to get for a team, the most expensive thing to get for a team, you don't have to spend a dime on this offseason. You don't even need to go out and get a Martin Perez or, a Marco Gonzalez. Like they might. If they try to flip like a guy like Bailey Falter, for example, they're going to probably want to get a veteran left-hander just because you can't have all right-handers in your starting rotation. You need to have something a little different maybe. But what I would like to see them do, and in the note of being aggressive, is like, what you pointed out, Scott, get creative. Really dip into the trade market. You've got 3 top 100 pitching prospects. Mm-hmm. You've got, young guys like, you've drafted very high for a long time, and you can package them. And even some guys who it's like, maybe you dangle out Henry Davis, and you could say, it hasn't worked here, but he's a 1-1 pick. Someone's got to want him for something, even if it gets you just like a 7th inning reliever. Like,
right.
Let's look at what helps that. Yeah. What's like if you could get a 2013 Ryan Baraki for Henry Davis, would you make that trade?
Oh, 100%.
Some would say but the other part of it is, and this goes against their whole philosophy as a franchise, if you like someone so much and you know that it's a market where you're probably going to have to overpay, be aggressive, make the first offer, and make it an offer they can't refuse in a way. Not like in a mafia way, but like in a sense where it's like meet exactly what they want and just be like, you're our guy. We're going to make sure we get you. And that's what winning teams do and they're not going to be doing that for a player like Soto or a player like, whoever, where they know that another team could offer more. And obviously these guys know that any team can offer more than Pittsburgh probably. But if they find a player that they're willing to overpay for, and some teams will say, I don't know if I want to pay Tyler O'Neill that much money. Like maybe we can find an internal thing. Make other teams think like the Pirates by how aggressive you act in free agency. You don't have to do it for every guy. But if you view a player like an O'Neill, like a Kim at short or somebody like that, who you could see being a benefit to your team defensively, offensively, as a leader, go out and pay him overpay him because you've underpaid. You're underpaying Skeens. You're underpaying Jones. You're underpaid. And if you just offer those guys a 2-year deal, guess what? They're off the books before your stars hit arbitration anyway.
Yeah.
So you can work this out the way it is. I don't anticipate them to be super aggressive in free agency. I just don't, because I think with this regime, no one should expect it until they actually do it. I don't anticipate them spending a lot of money. I think payroll's simply going to go up because they have a lot of guys with the way their deal's structured.
Come off, yeah.
You're right. Like, Mitch is going to make more money next year. Brian's going to make more money next year. Some guys are going to hit arbitration. They're going to make more money next year. Then they're going to probably spend the same amount as they did last year in free agency. And just by that, doing that naturally, the payroll is going to go up. But you just got to be better with the dollars you spend.
Yeah. I mean, look at the rate of starting pitching. You're underpaying Mitch Keller too, if in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
I mean, you're underpaying. Oh, I mean,
everyone.
You can make. Yeah, you're underpaying everyone. I was going to go on a list, but it's safe to say they don't really pass out the big bucks. I mean, I agree. You got to be creative. Nobody should be untouchable. I think outside of Chandler, which I really think, I mean, that's like the one guy, unless it's going to yield such a return where it's like a Juan Soto type return that turned the Nationals organization around. Like, you hold on to that guy, but everybody should be in play. There shouldn't be any prospect hugging when it comes to improving the team for the next couple of years. Because then if you miss this window, the next window is probably going to be another couple years off from that, because they have a lot of young guys down in Bradenton.
And what's that window going to look like?
We don't know. Exactly.
Right.
So
you're not going to have a Paul Skeens in that window.
Right. 100%. So, I mean, you can't, well, and plus, like, this front office talks like they're managing and preparing for that window as well. So it needs to just solely focus on, like, hey, the time is now. The Central, I mean, I've said it before, it was up for grabs last year. They missed that window. It's going to be a little bit more tight next year with guys making moves, and I'm assuming the Brewers are going to try and get better. I'm assuming the Cardinals are going to make some moves. It might take them a little bit longer since they're going to be getting rid of guys probably like Arenado is probably going to be cleared off their roster. Goldschmidt's already gone. Yep. But the Reds are young, and they might be finally picking a direction to go in. And then the Cubs, I mean, you always just kind of have to think like they're probably going to be in the mix because they're going to spend money. Mm-hmm. But back to Derek Shelton, because this is where the conversation started, and we kind of got to like, well, hey, they got to make these moves, and ultimately that's not up to Shelton. He's been given opening day rosters with JB Shuck. He's been given opening day rosters with Guillermo Heredia. He's been given opening day rosters with Anthony Alford. He's been given opening day rosters with Cole Tucker starting in right field. So it's like, where do we say like, hey, he's doing the best with like what he's given, and what he's given is absolutely nothing. And then you make the argument like, oh, well, like a good manager needs to like get the most out of his players. But like, if these are your players, at least from years like 19 through like 22, it's like, what do you want the guy to do? And there's no more excuses for that, because you do have key pieces where you can build around now. So it's like, it even adds more pressure to the like, hey, we're going to be held accountable going into 2025, which is ridiculous to say, but like, their words, not mine.
Yeah, I think it's tough for Shelton too, because I mean, there's not a lot of credibility prior to this. You know, like when Hurdle had those collapses in 11 and 12, you could look at it, it's like, all right, well, this guy's like led a team to a World Series. Like we know he can do this. Yeah. Right. And I don't know. Like, I think logically people understand that Shelton has not been given the best deck of cards. But there does come a point with anyone, and it's the same conversation with Tomlin. Like, there are some people who think Tomlin is a victim partially of Steelers ownership, and that, you know, this edition of the Rooney family isn't as great as past editions of the Rooney family when it comes to budgets for assistant coaches and everything. And they kind of limit them in certain aspects. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine, but then maybe you should try to find someone who can win under these circumstances. And that's kind of a fair point to make about with Shelton. It's like what Scott kind of says, where it's like, he might not be the guy for this job. This job requires someone who you can look at and believe in. And if you're someone in that clubhouse who didn't necessarily believe in Shelton this year, why in the world would you believe in him going into next year?
Right.
And that's not a dig at the guy. I'm just saying that there are some people on this team who have played for World Series winning managers. You know, like there are guys on this team last year who played for Bruce Bochy. And it's like, how do you invest in a guy who has a career winning percentage of like what, 470, something like that?
Yeah.
When you got done playing for someone who's going to be in Cooperstown, it's just different. And I'm not saying that you know, those types of guys aren't necessarily lining up to be the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, I think that's also worth saying. It is tough for Shelton when you look at like everything that he's kind of had to deal with. Like his first season being a pandemic year is brutal. Like the fact that, you know, there is a clear development problem on the hitting side. Like he doesn't really have much to do with that. And like you're giving him all of these early draft picks and they're like excited and you see him come up and it's like, I can't do anything with these guys. They're just not big league ready. It's clear. Guys like Davis and everything. And I do sympathize for him when like I'll give my report cards at the end of each month and people will say like, why aren't you more critical on Shelton? And like, I'll always say like, you know, what's your flaw with Shelton? Like, why is he batting Connor Joe fourth? Who else are you going to bat fourth? Look at who's available. Why would he pitch Bednar there? Okay, well, all right, you're going to pitch Chapman in the ninth? Then who's pitching the eighth? Bednar? So is the blow up just going to happen an inning earlier? You know, like there's just certain things where you can point at. Like we were criticizing him in August that one time for not pitching Jalen Beeks instead of Holderman. And it's like, hey, maybe there's a reason you didn't want to pitch Jalen Beeks, you know? Like there's
man.
Right. Like there's just certain things where it's like his hands are tied. And was it maybe worth a shot to see if someone else can figure this out? Sure. But maybe the reality is this is such a complicated puzzle that starting over from square one would pretty much be wasting this whole thing they have in front of him. Or at least this guy, he's got the corner pieces and he's like working his way around the outside. And we don't know if he's ever going to finish it, but it's such a mess. I don't know if it would be better for someone to come in from the outside because that's got to be complemented with other things too. Like when Clint Hurdle came in, you know what he had that John Russell didn't have was AJ Burnett in his first couple of years, was Russell Martin in his first couple of years, was Andrew McCutchen coming into his prime.
Yeah.
You know, like those things help Clint Hurdle a little bit too. You know, it's not just all win one for the Gipper speeches and teaching guys how to shift in the infield. Like that's
Big Data Baseball didn't win them in games in 2013.
I don't know. But yeah, so that's the thing where it's tough either way. And I don't know what I would have done. I certainly hear the logic of just like, maybe it's time to give someone else a chance. But I also hear the logic of, look, like we're on the inside. We know how bad it is right now. Yeah. We've got to keep giving these opportunities to the people who have at least seen all of the roads that are closed before we send someone else on this new journey and we have to go through all of this. No, we can't do that because of this. They can't do that because of that type of thing.
Yeah, I guess the way I look at it too, like I could be wrong here, and this is a small sample size, but in my life as a Pirates fan, the one and only manager that was successful was a guy who had experience, who had been there. Yep. These guys who came in with first time being managers, Lloyd McClendon, I don't think he was a manager before the Pirates. No. Jim Tracy was. John Russell wasn't, I don't think. And then we got Shelton. They haven't been successful here, and that's why I mentioned that I thought a guy like a Francona or a guy who's been there might have a better shot. But then again, there's a lot of issues. And you mentioned player development. I think that's my biggest concern. We all know that Handy Haynes change had to be made there, but it seemed like too little. Like at what point does Bake have to answer to some of these questions as the farm director? And I feel like a lot of the player development staff has been there even before the Cherington regime.
Yep.
It's the same old. It seems like a a minor fix that's not going to fix the whole problem.
Yeah. Here's also a thing, and then I'll let you jump in, Noah. Everyone assumed like, hey, Tito had this job, and I think you did a great job bringing it up on the point last week. Like, we have no idea if Tito wanted this job or not. And then you go to who else is left? Skip Schumacher. Why the hell would Skip Schumacher want to take a Pirates job after coming from Miami?
Right.
He's trying to escape that type of shit. So then you're left with a pool of guys who probably are up for head coaching jobs who have never been a manager in the past, right? They're bench coaches, former players, hitting coaches, minor league guys. You're pretty much doing the same thing over and over again because nobody's going to want to take that job. The guy with experience dealing with this type of front office is definitely a necessity, but trying to bring someone in and be like, hey, come with us. This is where you want to be. That's a tough sell.
I will say Buck Showalter apparently wants the White Sox job, and that's a name that kind of intrigued me at first. Oh.
I mean,
I don't know how I feel about Buck, honestly.
Well, there's just like most people who have had success aren't trying to save a team like that. And even in the instance of like a White Sox, for example, like objectively speaking, the White Sox are better at identifying talent than the Pirates. They're better at developing it. They're just not better at keeping it healthy and productive. You know, like if you had to bet who's going to have more winning seasons until 2040, the Pirates or the White Sox, I think the White Sox would probably be the safer bet, right?
Yeah.
Even just considering how bad it is now, like what's the number one selling point of being the manager of the Pirates right now?
Paul Skeens.
Right. And okay, so you bring that to me in a job interview. We have Paul Skeens, and I'm going to say, yeah, I'm not looking at this for a 3-year thing for me. Ideally, I'm your manager for 10 years. Is Paul going to be there all 10? Is Paul going to be there for 5 of those 10? Right. No. What? So I can just get hired to see him be traded away? Right? And ideally, when this team is starting to get a flow? No. You know, so like that's tough. Like, but to answer the other part of the question is, and I asked this in the press conference and it didn't generate the answer I thought it would. It seems like they've gone out of their way to make extra positions in the early days for the pitching side. You know, getting guys like the Hoppers, the Robinsons, who come in and they're making a notable difference. And they're getting pointed out, not just by Cherington, but other organizations are saying, like, these are the guys who are identifying this talent, who are developing this talent. So I said, has there been any consideration, rather than just filling open roles, to just adding more positions? Go hire, create another job. Find your Dewey Robinson for hitting.
Nunnally.
Okay. But like seriously, like and like that's the area, if you're a team like the Pirates, where you're never going to outspend, you know, the teams even in your own division. If you want to be smart with your investment, they always love to point out that Dominican facility. Yeah. Like, oh, that's an investment we're going to make, and that will make us better, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that's also a type of investment. Like, if you go and you hire people in those types of settings, like if you have a different type of staff that can hire more people who can help you develop better, like that's better than spending $3 million on a player like Rowdy Tellez. If you can spend that $3 million on 2 salaries of guys who are going to be able to identify talent and consistently develop and bring a nice little pipeline of 2 WAR players to your lineup, that's a better investment than just a 1-year, $3 million contract for a player. So I was hoping that they would take that as like, I was hoping that would be something in the cards where it's like, maybe we need an outside perspective, and not in the sense where it's like, okay, well, if you clearly believe in this group that you have, clearly, because you're not firing enough people to what would make sense for just a casual observer. When you see 5 years of failure, you would think that there'd be more turnover, but there's not. And it's like, okay, well, if you're not letting current people go, if you believe in that group, then like, why not add to it? Why not why not add other people who you think could make this even better?
Yeah.
I agree with that. And then also, like, back to your point about the Dominican, investment. It's like buying a really nice house, but like not living in it, like keeping it empty, because they've really struggled in the Latin American market. So it's just like, it's back to your analogy about the puzzle pieces. It's just like you're trying to work it from the outside in, and it's like you don't know if you'll ever finish it. It just doesn't seem like they're going in the right order, or they have it all together at one time, at least.
Right. I mean, the Dominican thing is insane to me. That like they openly flaunt that as it's like this great thing they're doing. And it's like, dude, the best player that you developed there is playing right now for the Mets. I'm watching him on TV, like right now. And he hasn't played in a Pirates uniform since like the first person got COVID. So like, what are we talking about here?
Which was also the first trade that Cherington made.
That was the first trade.
Piguero and Brendan Malone, I think.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Still too early to call that one. In my opinion.
The jury's still out on that. Well, that's a good transition to playoffs. Noah, I know you had a bracket out there.
Yeah.
We put some brackets out there. It's been really fun watching people like actually care about baseball and like having like the fan base get excited. Like those like videos of people watching Pete Alonso hit a go-ahead home run just make me like feel all types of way inside, because I'm like, ooh, like what does that feel like? Like I haven't freaked out about the Pirates like that since 2013.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's nice. It's also sad seeing other people happy as well, because I'm like, oh man, like it seems way too far off. But who do you got, man? Like I've taken a look at your bracket. It looks like you got one half right, and then the other half is eliminated. I think Scott could feel some sympathy with you there because it hasn't gone his way. But who do you like here moving forward?
Well, my World Series prediction was Padres over the Yankees.
I like that. Yeah.
Huge game tonight for San Diego. We're recording this at 6 p.m. on Sunday night. Like, Yu Darvish for game 2 at Dodger Stadium. A lot can go wrong there. But if it goes right, like if they can take one in LA, I think they'll win this series. San Diego is just a team that always stuck out to me. Just after watching, I've seen every single team in this postseason play in person, and like they really just captivated me with like they have everything you need. Mm-hmm. They have home run hitters. Their bullpen's loaded. They have starters where I just look at it, and obviously like losing Musgrove hurts. But like I just looked at like when I'm looking at a team to like pick a World Series winner, I'm looking for 3 pitchers who can give me 5 innings. And out of that group, I need one guy who can give me 7. San Diego's got that. I need a bullpen where I have 4 leverage guys. So I can come in and say, if worst case scenario, I can count on all of you guys to give me 2 ups and high leverage in a series. Not every day, but like in a 7-game series, I'm going to need you to give me 2 ups one day. I'm going to need you and not completely piss down your leg. And then I need guys who can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And clearly they have that. So that's why I love them. And the same thing for the Yankees. Like the Yankees, like, they play in a ballpark where like, anyone can hit a home run. 1, but like 2, just like they just have got that lineup 1 through 9 can change a game in 1 inning. It's kind of like Philly, but they just have more momentum right now than Philly. So yeah, that's why I like those teams. I also want to just hit real quick on a point that you made, Adam. And I think this postseason is probably more painful for Pirates fans than others. Is because you look at some of these teams that are having success, and it's just random stuff happening. Like the Tigers, like look up and down the Tigers roster. Like this isn't me being like, I covered the Pirates, I'm more familiar. The Pirates objectively have more talent on their team than the Detroit Tigers. Like they just do.
Easily.
And it is not saying that the Pirates are some juggernaut, but like they just don't have like a lot of guys. It's just like they're their July happened in the last couple of weeks where it's just like no one can beat them. And that's got to be frustrating to see that just luck in a way. That happens in baseball. But you make your own luck and you construct it so things like this can happen. You look at the Mets, like everyone wants to, poo-poo the Mets because they have this huge payroll. But like the dudes who are really performing aren't these big time acquisitions, like
Mark Vientos,
Jose Iglesias, like guys like that. Like it's like these are players the Pirates could have afforded.
Yeah,
they could have had like these are, and it's just like that where it's like the guys who are making postseason changing, season altering differences. They're not. I mean, sure, Lindor and Alonso have played a role in that, and so is Tarek Skubal. Like, there are those elite guys, but like the Pirates have those elite guys too. Like the Pirates have that, but it's just their other guys are so much better than the Pirates' other guys, and you have to wonder why. Why is their 1 year, $3 million a year guy better than our 1 year, $3 million? Why is their waiver claim better than our waiver claim? Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tigers, you brought up a good point there. I mean, Tariq Skubal helps you have a Cy Young Triple Crown pitcher, and their bullpen's been really, really good. I think that's been a difference maker.
Yeah.
But offensively, like, I don't know how many guys on that team I'd take over some of the Pirates' bats. Like
Riley Green,
that's it. And he was a guy I really liked at the deadline too, if the Tigers were going to continue, sucking. But I had Phillies over Yankees, and I just want to give a quick update here as we're recording. When we started, it was 3-3 because Harper and Castellanos hit a home run to tie it up. And then it became 4-3 because Nimmo hit a solo shot. But now it's 5-4 Phillies in the bottom of the eighth. Bryson Stott hit a 2-run triple. So That's an exciting series. And I will say, like, the Mets are a team that were at the beginning of the year were built to be a 500 ball club, in my opinion.
Yep.
And they got hot and they rallied behind this song and Grimace and what God knows what else, and they just have a lively clubhouse, and I don't know, that's something I've never seen within the Pirates. So
I think that part of that just requires winning. Like I'm confident if they took off in July and never looked back, that there would have been a song for this team too. There would have been, like, there's just been other instances like Zoltan or Elman Chone in 2018, right? Like, just stuff like that happens organically when you're having fun. And
True.
Having fun correlates to winning. And just, like, those are storylines that, like, as a sports writer, like, seeing that kind of stuff pisses me off because it's like, man, like, that could have been something I wrote about. Like, I could have told the story behind why Jared Jones's Unwritten, by Natasha Bedingfield has, like, become the anthem of the 2024 Pirates. Like, that could have been a thing or something else, like, there's just moments like that. Like it's like you could go all the way back in history, like 2002, the Rally Monkey with the Angels, just certain things where, like, you cling on to it. That's what happens when you go on a run. Weird things happen in baseball and you hone on to it and it becomes part of the story. And that's just something Pirates fans don't have a lot of experience with because there haven't been a lot of runs. There haven't been a lot of fun stories.
Yeah, I think unfortunately for the Pirates, the teams that are most similar to them are all in the AL picture with the Tigers, the Guardians, and the Royals. I mean, the way the Royals have turned from last year to a 50-win-something team to competing in the ALDS is
plus
really,
30 wins from last year.
Yep.
Plus 30 wins is incredible. I mean, obviously they put trust in their young superstar, and then they built around that with some great veterans. I mentioned all the time, like having the value of like Perez in the locker room, or in the clubhouse. But Noah, I really like your pick with the Padres because I think Scott and I argue about this. They're probably, Scott thinks they're the most well-rounded, like all around most talented team. And I think it's very hard to argue against that. I just had a hard time putting them over the Dodgers because I think the Dodgers are probably the most talented team. And just the magic that they have with like Ohtani, Betts, Freeman. I know they have it with like Tatis and Machado, and then you got Soto and Judge. There's talent galore here. Harper, Turner, Castellanos. I have the Dodgers beating the Yankees in the World Series, but I could easily see the Padres, if they win this series, going all the way, like 100%. Like that would be my team with Cease and King, like those performances that they've already put up in the playoffs without having like that much experience. I think did King pitch in the playoffs in the COVID year? Or was it?
Yeah, he did for the Yankees. Yes,
he did when there was like cardboard cutouts of like dogs in the stands. Yeah, but like having like this energy behind it, and the fans of San Diego.
Oh, they're awesome. Going nuts.
Yeah, it's so cool. That would definitely be my other team from the NL, but I just have a hard time seeing the Dodgers. Like this would have to be the year where you put away like the Mickey Mouse accusations of like the 2020 World Series, right? Like you put in $700 million, like it's so like public. And I kind of like had this thought last night because my girlfriend's a Yankees fan. Her whole family is huge Yankees fans, and I always say like, hey, I fucking hate the Yankees. Like, screw the Yankees. I can't stand them. And they always ask me like why. And I'm like, oh, because they spent all this money, blah, blah, blah. And I can't deal with that. And then I look at it now, I'm just like, I don't really hate the Yankees for that now, but I've never really thought of the Dodgers in that way either. And I find myself rooting for them, maybe just because of the appeal of like guys like Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani. And Freddie Freeman seems like an awesome guy as well. But just so much talent that's going to shape up for an incredible postseason, which already has.
All right. It's been good so far. I don't know. I can't ever trust the Dodgers. I think Shohei might be the difference maker. I kind of hate the Dodgers starting rotation.
Yeah.
Compared to the other teams, like I wouldn't put what they have to trot out, especially with like none of them have been healthy, and we're getting later into the year where those innings come with a little bit more mileage. I wouldn't put their rotation ahead of the Mets. I wouldn't put it ahead of Philly. Definitely wouldn't put it ahead of San Diego. You know, like it's just, I don't know if they have the horses. They have a good bullpen. They obviously have the run power, but if they're going to win the World Series, they're going to have to win a lot of games like they won Saturday night, where it's just, they're going to have to out-hit the other team.
Yeah, 100%. I'd probably take the Phillies rotation. If we were going to like build the perfect team here out of these, 4 that are in the NLDS, I'd probably put the Phillies rotation.
If Musgrove was healthy, I would really, really like San Diego's.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, Ohtani is the difference maker possibly in that lineup. And I think Soto might be the difference maker for the Yankees because Judge has like a career 208 average in the playoffs, and he looked terrible last night, to be honest with you. I watched that whole game. And Soto went 3 for 4. So that would be a fun matchup if they both meet up in the World Series, but it would also be fun to see the Padres and Yankees, given that they made that huge trade preseason. So
Michael King, Game 1 at Yankee Stadium.
King and Cole.
Soto. Oh my God. Incredible. Well, I like I said, I think I have the Dodgers in 6 over the Yankees with Mookie Betts as my World Series MVP. I know you have Tatis as your World Series MVP, Scott.
Bryce
Who are you going? Bryce Harper, which would
I think it's inevitable. They're going to win one with him. I just do.
I like the energy over there at the bank. As much as I can talk shit about Philadelphia all day, it is such a cool atmosphere to see. We'll see how it shapes up. No, you're going to be back on the show this offseason.
Yes.
Many times. If you haven't listened to the previous episodes and you're just watching this now, Noah's going to join us as a co-host throughout the off season. I think we're going to do it bi-weekly or just depending on, what the news is with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But we are looking forward to it and all the content that we are going to bring. If you don't already, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, OnlyFans. Subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure you hit like, leave a comment. If you're listening to the audio, make sure you download and leave a 5-star review. As always, we appreciate you all listening. Until next time, raise it.
Raise it.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates, or the steak by the plates and it